Today, I'm not just pulling the curtain back, I'm setting it on fire. Folks, I'm bringing you a bit of news today that I don't really see other people covering. And I have a job that takes me from school to school to school. So I have seen this with my own two eyes going on in actually a red district. So while, yes, a lot of people are focused on, as we rightly should be, critical race theory, if you're a parent and you're going in there, you also have to be fighting against your children being shown CNN 10, formerly known as CNN Student News, or what I like to call CNN for Children. It's basically a 10-minute news broadcast that pretends to be, fair and balanced, but it's CNN. Now, I'm sure for most of you, if I say that kids are being shown CNN news shows in their classrooms, right off the bat, you already know this is a bunch of leftist indoctrination garbage. And I'm sure that you don't need me to dig any deeper. But if I bring claims, I have to bring receipts. So I'm going to be bringing the receipts with me today and showing you just how they pretend and say that they are, we're not biased. This is so fair. But I'm going to show you how they are lying to your children and trying to turn them against you and any kind of conservative values or principles. CNN 10 is a 10-minute news segment. On some days, they don't have any real political information going on. It's, look at some puppies and what would it be like to live on Mars? And then other days they have politics. But of course, it's left-leaning politics masquerading as non-biased politics. And now it's time for me to give some receipts. It's very important to note the date of this video here, which is January 10th, 2021, because here they are going to completely lie to the children. This isn't just bias news. This is fake news at its finest, as they lie about Officer Brian Sicknick being killed by Trump supporters, which is a total lie because he died from a stroke, and CNN had that news. They knew it, and I can prove it.
A Capitol police officer who was attacked while trying to stop some rioters died of his wounds the next day.
So he was attacked and he died. He was killed by Trump supporters. Okay, so this was uploaded on January 10th. Check this out. This is an article from ProPublica from January 8th. Here they have the statement given by the deceased's brother, Ken Sicknick. He texted me last night and said, I got pepper sprayed twice and that he was in good shape, said Ken Sicknick. His brother, apparently he collapsed in the Capitol and they resuscitated him using CPR. But the day after that text exchange, the family got word that Brian Sicknick had a blood clot and had had a stroke. A ventilator was keeping him alive. We weren't expecting it, his brother said. And I want you to notice this statement here. Down here, this is more the quote from his brother, Ken Sicknick. Brian is a hero, and that is what we would like people to remember. Remember that, because I'm jumping over here to this CNN article about the same thing. Brian is a hero, and that is what we would like people to remember, he said. So CNN had the access to the same exact statement that ProPublica had, except they didn't mention the part where the family said he had a stroke. So they knew, and they left that out. Oh, they updated this January 9th, 2021. So I don't know if this came out on the 8th or 9th, but either way, the next day, even though they knew he had a stroke, they went ahead and they told the children that he died from injuries sustained during the attack, AKA Trump supporters killed him. And I just showed you the proof that they had it. They selectively edited that statement to paint Trump supporters in a negative light. And then they lied to your children the next day and told your children that Trump supporters killed him when they knew full well he had died from a stroke. See, it's to make your children feel bad. So they don't want to be conservative. They don't want to have your views. You should feel ashamed. Maybe that, they should be mad at you. You're part of this. You helped kill a police officer. You're a terrible person. And of course, they couldn't tell the truth to the American public or the children because they were busy having Anderson Cooper and all the other people from all the other fake news channels going out there saying that he was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher.
Brian Sicknick died after being hit in the head with a fire extinguisher during the fight.
He died at the age of 42 after he was bludgeoned with a fire extinguisher.
Of course, that never happened, but it's CNN. So, they don't care about the truth. They just care about the message. They just care about the propaganda. They care about their truth, which of course is all lies. And one of the worst parts of all is that CNN is not even trying to hide the fact that they are teaching your children that they are trustworthy. They're not even trying to hide it. Check this out.
CNN 10 is teaming up with AT&T's Youth Voices Collective, a program developed to support student expression and to teach writing and journalism skills to young writers. Collaborating organizations include 826 National, 6 Feet of Separation, and Vox ATL.
Don't you just want Vox teaching your kids how to write news?
Hey, Carl, it's me, Frank Klein from Portland, Oregon. I was wondering how you recommend deciding which news sources to trust.
Well, we're taking a good hard look at sources, where you get the news you consume, and how you can know if what you're reading is truthful and accurate or made up and false. This is a crucial component of media literacy. Misinformation is bad, okay? And it's been around.
Look at the little manipulative, cutesy things that he thinks he's doing to attract children and to make them think that he's trustworthy. These little, okay.
Misinformation is bad, okay? And it's been around as long as the news itself. When we're talking about misinformation, we don't mean your middle school media specialist. We're talking about false info, something that never happened or something that's just downright misleading. In the information...
Oh, yeah, like Brian Sicknick being bludgeoned to death by a fire extinguisher. But continue.
A good rule of thumb is this. If what you're seeing came from a news organization you've heard of, it's more likely to be credible information. Think of the major American cable networks like CNN.
And there you have it, folks. Your tax dollars are being used to fund having your children trained to trust CNN. It doesn't get any simpler or clearer than that.
Think of the major American cable networks like CNN. Think of ABC, CBS, NBC, the BBC, Reuters, the Wall Street Journal, Politico, The Hill. These are sources that stake their reputations on getting facts right, in addition to the hundreds of credible local news stations located around your neck of the woods. You want to be camping with facts and not with a source like Uncle Billy at myspacebook.haha.
You know what? I think I'm better off with what they say, Uncle Timmy at Spacebook, because I know for sure that you're lying to me. There's a chance that Uncle Timmy is telling the truth. Our reputations are based on our credibility. These are the people who spent years and years and years lying about phony Russian collusion and PP hoaxes and just anything that President Trump did. Name a day I can find you a lie that they told.
For years, political opponents of U.S. President Donald Trump have been discussing the 25th Amendment, and their calls have grown louder in the wake of the violence carried out by some of President Trump's supporters at the U.S. Capitol building last week. Section 1 of the 25th Amendment.
Okay, first of all, there is no reason to be running this segment whatsoever. This is a pure anti-Trump, Trump is bad, we hate Trump hit piece. The 25th Amendment is for if the president is incapacitated, like he had a stroke or he is in a coma. It's not because you don't like who the president is. And this is just doing nothing but painting him in a negative light outside of more leftist indoctrination.
So the question we're confronting today is whether the 25th Amendment could be used to remove a president who some feel is, quote, detrimental to the health of our republic. Remember, the amendment was written primarily to address physical incapacity.
I've watched these videos. I haven't seen him do something similar like that to Biden because there have been way more leftist riots than the mostly peaceful protests that we saw on January 6th. I would say actually that is the very definition of a mostly peaceful protest because there were about 1 million people there and several hundred went inside a building, even though a lot of them were welcomed in and ushered in. But if you have less than 1,000 out of 1 million people, like I said, very definition of mostly peaceful protest versus years of violent riots and burning down cities and destroying people's businesses. And where's the call for Biden? Where's the piece on him to remove him? Because Biden supporters have been burning down. Not only have they been burning down things, but they have been killing people, in particular, children. 8-year-old Sequoia Turner. How about Officer David Dorn? How about when they set up the Chop Chaz zone and a Black child was murdered by those people? I mean, we have all-out child murder. Biden supporters committing child murder. Where are the calls for the 25th Amendment? Where is that section for him? Oh, it's not there. Oh, but this is so unbiased. Give me a break.
And how do you think your kids feel after being forced to sit there and listen to this garbage? Well, you don't have to wonder, because I found this petition where a lot of parents are sharing their children's experiences and how this hurt their children being forced to watch this. In the school I was in, they were forcing the 4th graders to watch this mess during their snack time. Let me tell you, 4th graders, they don't care about this. They want to see cartoons, not hit pieces on President Trump. But it's supposed to make your kids feel bad. It's supposed to hurt your children. They want to hurt your children. They love hurting your children. That is their goal. And unfortunately, they have been very successful at it. And it's not going to stop. It's only going to get worse unless you get up and you do something about it.
Name not displayed, someone from Texas. I have requested through the district superintendent to excuse my daughter from this each day after she shared with us that they always make Trump look bad or don't mention him or anything he did to help. She's 10. She was clearly concerned it was biased and not fair and balanced. My high school daughter, who's now graduated, shared that her last years of high school, they broadcasted this, and she was often uncomfortable with how they portrayed the other side or barely touched upon the successes from such. If they show this, then give kids an option to watch Newsmax or Fox, and not only this, simply one-sided and another grab at indoctrination in schools. And folks, I believe that this person is real because I have watched about 6 months at least worth of this garbage against my will, trying not to vomit and scream the whole entire time, but it absolutely is leftist garbage indoctrination.
Here's a little bit they do on the Electoral College.
Electoral College. It's simpler than regular college. It's actually the name of a group of people who choose the U.S. president. Why them and not just citizens through a popular vote? Well, some of the founding fathers weren't completely comfortable with a direct election by the people. They wanted to buffer or limit that. They didn't think the average American was really in tune with politics. Electors, on the other hand, are all over them.
I need your vote.
If you haven't figured this out yet, this is a piece that is subtly teaching kids to hate the Electoral College. How do you feel about your kids being taught that the main reason behind the Electoral College being formed was that the founding fathers thought that you were too stupid to be able to vote for who you wanted for president? That's basically what they just said. That's what they're telling your kids.
Yeah, it had nothing to do whatsoever with smaller states wanting equal representation. Nope, it's just about you being stupid. Now, to be fair, because I'm not CNN, in Federalist Paper number 68, Alexander Hamilton does make reference to the idea that the actual choice of president should be made by those best qualified to choose a president of virtue and ability, because the Electoral College should, quote, afford a moral certainty that the office of the president will never go to the lot of any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications, unquote. Now, of course, CNN doesn't really care about faithless electors, those being the electors that didn't vote for the people that they were supposed to vote for. They don't care about that at all, and I can prove it by using CNN to debunk CNN. CNN doesn't have a problem with faithless electors. They just want to teach your children that they should get rid of the Electoral College to ensure Democrats winning the presidency from here to eternity. But don't take it from me. Take it from CNN, from their own articles. According to CNN, Not only are faithless electors rare, they are exceedingly rare. They have never affected the outcome of an election. The majority of states, including the District of Columbia, have laws that discourage faithless electors, and that the electors are chosen in a way to ensure they are politically loyal, and faithless electors keeping a president in power is not based in any reality. So what are they complaining about? Thank you, CNN, for debunking yourself.
All right, so they're going to explain how it works, and this is just fairly general information. I'm going to jump ahead.
And here's where it gets tricky. The Electoral College is supposed to reflect what most Americans want.
No, actually, it's not supposed to reflect what most Americans want. What it's supposed to do, what it was designed to do, is actually to prevent mob rule. It's there to make sure that the smaller states get a say, or the less populated states get a say in who's in charge of the country. That's the exact opposite reason as to why it was formed. If they wanted it to be a system where it was done by majority rule, they would have just simply had a popular vote. But that's not the system that they set up. It was done this way for a reason, and now they're lying to your children.
But it is possible for a candidate to win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College and therefore the election. Former Vice President Al Gore, for example, won the popular vote in 2000, but lost the Electoral College and the election. Same thing happened in 1876 to Samuel J. Tilden and 1888 to Grover Cleveland. Did some folks get mad at the college? Uh-huh.
Did you catch that? Did you catch that little uh-huh? That was an agreement. Yes. Uh-huh. Yes, you should be upset with the Electoral College. Listen to it again. It's real subtle.
Did some folks get mad at the college? Uh-huh. But despite...
See, there's no reason to say uh-huh if you're unbiased. You would just say some people are mad about the college. No, you're saying uh-huh because you are in agreement, because you are angry, because you don't like the Electoral College, and now you are putting your opinions onto the kids.
Mad at the college. Uh-huh. But despite hundreds of proposals to change that or get rid of it, it hasn't happened, in part because it allows smaller states to still have some power in an election, and because it would take changing the U.S. Constitution.
So a brief little blip about some of the smaller states having some power.
But that's only in regards to why it's difficult to get rid of the Electoral College. And once again, remember, they told you in the beginning that the whole point of forming the Electoral College in the first place was because the founding fathers thought that the average person was too stupid to figure out who the president should be. So some smarter people should choose who the president is instead. And therefore, kids, yes, when you grow up, please vote and get rid of the Electoral College, because you're smart enough to figure out who the president should be, right? And your good friends at CNN also agree that the Electoral College should be abolished. It's disgusting.
Found this nice little article from heritage.org. This is what they should actually be teaching kids in school. Origins of the Electoral College, the founders' design. And guess what? It doesn't start off with people being too stupid to be able to figure out who the president is, and so low-key we need to get rid of it. The founders struggled to satisfy each state's demand for greater representation while attempting to balance popular sovereignty against the risk posed to the minority from majoritarian rule. Smaller states, in particular, worried that a system that apportioned representatives based on population would underrepresent their interests in the federal structure. This concern that either the big states or the small states would have too much influence over the choice of the president was voiced by many of the delegates at the convention. They understood the dangers that a direct democracy with the potential for mob rule brings to elections. After a long and serious debate, they arrived at an intentional design for electing the president that would incorporate the will of the people, but still safeguard against fraction and tyranny. That system, the Electoral College, balances the competing interests of large states with those of smaller states. by allocating electors based on a state's cumulative representation in the House and Senate, the Electoral College system avoids purely population-based representation while still giving larger states greater electoral weight. This design incorporates the genius of a popular democracy organized on the federal principle and has been our electoral system that has operated successfully for over 200 years. The Electoral College, in essence, not exactly to the exact number, but the Electoral College protects us and prevents basically California and New York from deciding who the president is for the rest of the country. I love the Electoral College. I love that my vote counts, but my vote counts because we have it. And it causes presidential candidates to campaign. So take a look at Montana with almost no electoral votes, or Colorado, Maine. Do you think that if this was just population based, nobody would be visiting these places? No one would be talking to these people. No one would care about your interests because you don't decide who is going to be president. But because we have the Electoral College, it is so much nicer that people have to attend to and consider the needs of these less populated areas. Here's another receipt. This video here on the presidential debates. They start off by giving the illusion of being fair and balanced by giving equal time to both candidates, kind of point, counterpoint. But then they sneak in this next bit.
And one priority for the moderator and the commission on presidential debates is to make sure that the candidates each get a fair shot at making their points. The commission has sponsored every presidential and vice presidential debate since 1987. It's nonpartisan, and it says it doesn't receive funding from the government or any political party or campaign. That's why when topics concerning the environment and climate change were brought up, the goal was to give each candidate a set amount of time.
All right, so now they're teaching kids that the commission on presidential debates is perfectly nonpartisan. It's totally fair. It's wonderful. And make sure you trust them. Got this little article from Newsweek here. At home, how many of you thought that these debates were fair and there were fair moderators? It says, this year the commission has picked a registered Democrat, a friendly biographer of Nancy Pelosi, and a Biden intern as the first three moderators. All four moderators are Washington insiders who live in Washington, socialize in Washington, and have no relationship with these so-called deplorables that the left despises. The commission represents precisely the values and attitudes that were repudiated in the election of President Trump. Even the Republicans on the supposedly nonpartisan commission board are pre-Trump members of the old world. Conservatives are, ever since the infamous Candy Crowley debate moment of 2012, no longer that naive about the level of bias they face. A bias commission has repeatedly endorsed and exercised over the debate process. Even the supposedly Republican board members are a catalog of figures openly opposed to the president. As the Washington Examiner reported in 2017, former Missouri Republican Senator John Danforth called Trump the most divisive president in our history. Republican Richard D. Parsons, former Time Warner chief, said Trump was not good for any America, and former Marine Republican Senator Olympia Snowe, who donated to Jeb Bush in 2016, said Trump was hurting the GOP brand. See, sometimes they're subtle, sometimes they're sneaky, trying to throw in that, hey, these debates were fair, kids. This commission was fair. No, it was not. No, it was not. How do you have a bunch of Trump haters on this board, both Democrats and Republicans, getting moderators that hate him and are Democrats, deep Washington insiders? You're like, yeah, that's fair. That was fair, kids. Nice lesson. Let's move on because it gets worse. This is probably my favorite example because I'm going to show you how they cover the Taliban with President Trump in office versus how they cover the Taliban with the imposter in chief. I'm sure it's not going to be a surprise to you that the Taliban is good and wonderful and fun when Trump is in office, because Trump is bad. Everything he does is bad, so they have to be good. Check this out.
Decades, and whose future even now is unclear. U.S. President Donald Trump has called off peace talks with the Taliban. And to explain why that's significant, we're taking a look at the three major players: the Taliban, the United States, and the Afghan government. First, the Taliban. It's an Islamic militant group that used to rule Afghanistan. After taking control in 1996, the Taliban established its strict interpretation of Islamic law in the country and allowed terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda to live and operate there. The United States faced off with the Taliban in 2001. After Al-Qaeda carried out the September 11th attacks on America, the U.S. demanded that the Taliban turn over Al-Qaeda and its leader. The Taliban refused, and the U.S. led a group of countries to remove the Taliban from power. That happened quickly, but Afghanistan has remained unstable, and thousands of American troops have been stationed there ever since, though their number has increased and decreased over the years. Today, there are about 14,000 American troops in Afghanistan. The country held its first democratic elections in 2004, and it's had a couple more since, but the Afghan government is fragile. The Taliban never went away, and they've continued their violent attacks throughout the country, including one that killed an American soldier last Thursday. Before that happened, the U.S. government was scheduled to hold secret peace negotiations with the Taliban, talks that some officials indicated could lead to U.S. troops leaving Afghanistan. After the bombing, though, President Trump called off the meeting, though both the U.S. and Afghan governments have left the door open for more negotiations.
So the intro part was, of course, like the trick to make you think that this is neutral. This is an unbiased news report. Yes, remember in the beginning of this video, they said that President Trump has called off peace talks with the Taliban, and they are going to explain to you why that's significant. And what you're going to learn today, kids, is that the Taliban are pretty okay guys. Because anything that Trump is against must be good. Because President Trump is always bad and wrong.
On the ground in Afghanistan, a CNN team was allowed to enter Taliban-controlled territory earlier this year. They found that the militant group hasn't changed much. The Taliban is still very strict, and it still wants to be cut off from the rest of the world.
We wanted to see what life is like under the Taliban. We traveled to Afghanistan and managed to spend 2 days in Taliban territory.
We kind of often do this when we're working together, is we start off with, okay, what's the dream? And then let's break it down and try to do it.
This was an assignment where they said, listen, we've decided to allow you into these areas. We will answer your questions. We don't like you. We don't love you being here. But we recognize that in this moment in time, it is politically expedient for us to do this. We were obviously wearing the full facial veil, the niqab. On the one hand, it allows me to be invisible. On the other hand, it inhibits the way you interact with people.
They don't want us to walk outside because I'm a woman.
And we weren't just wearing it for security reasons. That was, of course, a part of it, but we were wearing it because we were required to wear it. And that was something our host very much wanted to make sure that we understood.
We worked very closely with an Afghan filmmaker, Najibullah Qureshi. He was really the one with the stellar reputation that allowed him to bring myself and Selma into Taliban territory.
Isn't it wonderful? The Taliban is so kind. They let them come in and hang out. They got to wear burqas. Like, where is the negative? Where's the negative part of this story? This is just being grateful and happy.
Where's all that feminist concern over the severe lack of women's rights?
I fundamentally believe that this story could not have been done by a man. No one would ask your name. No one would really ask where you were from, because you were women with an Afghan man, and it would be rude, in a sense, to that Afghan man to ask personal questions about who you were or where you were from.
It was interesting, though, as women, to be in those women's quarters and have that, that distance that the men have to create. They were so polite, and they wanted to keep speaking to us. They brought us out the best food they have, the best bedding they had. It was just really kind to see that very familial part of Afghanistan.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Life under the Taliban is fantastic, actually. You see, they can't anything that Trump does, even if it's against the Taliban, even though, yes, initially they started, they try to they do the illusion of being balanced, but see how they finish it up with, actually, we had a fantastic time hanging out with the Taliban. They gave us food. It was wonderful. We got to wear burqas. It was great. We saw this soft side of female oppression that was A-okay in our books. Let's contrast this with this report from May 6th of 2021.
With 2 days left in the work and school week, we welcome you to CNN 10. My name is Coral Azus. Afghanistan is not a stable country. Its former rulers, a Muslim fundamentalist group named the Taliban, are still a powerful and violent force. They continue to launch attacks against Afghan government troops. Some U.S. military officials say the Afghan government could fall apart if coalition forces aren't there to help it. But President Biden says the U.S. mission was to make sure Afghanistan would no longer be used as a base for terrorists, as it was for the September 11, 2001 attacks, and that mission has been accomplished. He also says it no longer makes sense for thousands of U.S. troops to be concentrated in that one country. But the top U.S. general says the withdrawal brings the potential for bad possible outcomes in Afghanistan. Critics of the pullout say it could mean civil war. Another concern they have involves women's rights. Those didn't exist under the Taliban. They could vanish again if the Afghan government collapses. U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken says the Taliban won't gain acceptance by other countries if they don't respect the rights of women and girls. U.S. intelligence officials say international acceptance probably isn't a Taliban priority. American troops are scheduled to...
Well, wait a minute. Where's all the... It was wonderful and it was fantastic. And they were so awesome to be there and to hang out with them. And they're so kind. And it was such a great women's space. I thought it was a fantastic women's space and a great place for women. What happened? Where's the pushback? What about the softer side of the Taliban and how kind they are and how gracious they are? What wonderful hosts. Where's that? This is just another piece that they put in here attempting to embarrass President Trump while appearing to be neutral and unbiased, where they talk about President Trump and putting in an offer to buy Greenland. And they start off trying to act like, oh, this is fair. And they give a little bit of history behind past presidents or former presidents being interested in buying Greenland.
On Sunday, President Trump told reporters that Greenland is hurting Denmark and confirmed that the U.S. was interested in buying the island. But Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said Greenland is not for sale and that she strongly hoped the suggestions that the U.S. might buy it weren't serious. She called them an absurd discussion. President Trump then wrote that based on those comments, he'd postpone their scheduled meeting for another time.
I look forward to going, but I thought that the Prime Minister's statement that it was absurd, it was an absurd idea, it was nasty. I thought it was an inappropriate statement. All she had to do is say, no, we wouldn't be interested.
The Danish leader called the postponement regrettable and surprising, but said repeatedly that the cancellation does not change the good relations between America and Denmark. Now, we're visiting the island of Greenland itself. How are some of the people there reacting to all this news? And what interests, besides resources, might the U.S. have in Greenland?
Folks in the very beautiful territory of Greenland don't seem that interested in President Trump's alleged idea to buy this place. The official government of the semi-autonomous region said, quote, Greenland is not for sale. They did say that they were willing to conduct cooperation between what they call equal countries. Now, local residents that we spoke to here in the small village of Kulusuk said the Americans tried to acquire Greenland in 1867 and in World War II, and they failed. And one resident said it will not happen.
If this were really fair and balanced news reporting, what you would have is that they would present some people who are pro-America acquiring Greenland. Earlier, they were talking about how Greenland has this super huge problem with unemployment. A lot of people are unhappy there. I'm sure somebody was interested, but you went all the way there. You didn't put anybody on camera. And one person said it would never happen. Like that, really? Well, what about the other people? You don't think anybody at all was pro-America? Come on, give me a break. This whole segment that they did, it's all negative. There's not one person who comes on there from any side and says, oh, yes, this would be a good idea because of this. No, it's all Trump said this and then negative all the way out. That's not fair and balanced. Oh, and then there's this garbage piece on the Mueller report. And I could be here for half an hour, 5 hours explaining why this is garbage. But instead, I'm going to link the video that I did. I think it's around 20 minutes long on the Mueller report already. So we can go by why this coverage is fake. I'm going to keep going here or I'll never be done. Here's a little prepping your kids for the Great Reset, telling them to eat bugs.
Crickets. But this could be the next big thing in culinary science. Experts say that if your toast had cricket flour, your smoothie had locust powder, your eggs had caterpillar fat, and your bacon was made of mealworms, you'd be getting more iron, protein, and vitamins than the breakfast you currently want to eat. So it's time to feast on some new info concerning crispity, crunchity crickets and mealtime.
Eat the bugs, kids. Eat the bugs. Got a piece here on how the lockdowns are clearing the air. There's less pollution. A little bit of this. This is more subtle, but a little bit of low key. Lockdowns are good because they save the earth.
Is usually.
And hey, looky here. You can go on teacherspayteachers.com and you can buy CNN Student News Current Event Analysis Common Core worksheets. So, teachers, or CNN Student News Bingo. All kinds of different indoctrination tools that teachers have available to them. And let's check out the reviews from this one. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. Your leftist teachers. Look at how happy they are. Extremely satisfied. Very satisfied. In our current events class, we watch CNN 10 almost every day. They're not even trying to hide it. They're bragging about it. They are so happy. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this should be shaking you to your core. Well over 1,000 reviews and kudos for these garbage worksheets for this garbage program. And here's this article from the Civic Educator. Is CNN 10 biased? I mean, do I really have to read this? I'm sure you guys know already that this is biased. You don't have to read the article. And we also know that if they were playing Fox News for children in classrooms, if there was such a thing, all the liberal parents would be up there trying to burn the schools down. So of course, here's somebody saying, oh no, of course not. No way. Of course, everything is wonderful. Oh, the final verdict. Is CNN 10 biased? Nope. Sorry. I know some people want to hate on CNN, and that hate flows down to this program. But after carefully watching and analyzing a week's worth of coverage, I don't see any evidence to support the claim that CNN 10 is biased. If you disagree, then provide some details in the comments section. I'd be happy to take a look at other videos and other weeks to see if this pattern holds overall. But I think it's safe to say CNN 10 is a neutral, reliable source of news for your students. Read more about why I like using it in my class and about different ways that I incorporate it into my class. It's a great way to keep your students up to date with current events and knowledgeable about what's going on in the world. Oh, and just look at this reply here from someone named Robert. Thank you for that very factual opinion. We were just given an article why CNN 10 is unbiased. I am even a Republican myself, but after watching CNN 10 for about a year, they have proven to be as unbiased as they can be. Well, I can't really figure out what's going on with this comment here. Either Robert is a liar, he's ignorant, or he's making a joke. Like they have proven to be as unbiased as they can be, which would basically mean
completely biased.
But I really hope that this guy really isn't a Republican and this is just a leftist troll on here and that people aren't buying this garbage.
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
So it doesn't matter if they're doing segments on dinosaurs or lawyers with cat
Didn't
filters.
quite look himself.
Don't get sucked in with the cutesy cat and dog videos and the pieces on dinosaurs. This is pure political indoctrination, even though it's more subtle than your regular CNN show. It is still obviously there. The only thing that they're missing are the talking heads that would just say, oh, Trump is a piece of garbage. He's so stupid. We hate him. He's a Nazi, blah, blah, blah. But it's that same just negative. But this is in some ways even more insidious because it's more subtle. And they're trying to masquerade as being fair and balanced when clearly they're not.
I've shown you.
Pure intentional lies that they've been telling the children. I have
shown you
leftist leaning stuff, some that is more obvious and some that is left obvious. If you'd like to take this video and take it to your school board meeting when you are, or play it at your school board meeting when you are going into fight against critical race theory, feel free. I don't care. Use this, play this anywhere you want. But the important thing is that you don't check out of politics. I know times are hard. I know things are difficult and very frustrating, and we all know why. Even if they don't want you to talk about it, we all know why. So don't give up the fight, because they're going to give your kids critical race theory and CNN for children, and none of those things are okay.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and please share it. You can help us continue to fight in the war against disinformation by donating at paypal.me/rightleftofcenter. I'm River Wright from Right Left of Center, and if you're watching, you're probably right too.